efforts to avert the spread of coronavirus. According to Nyandarua County Commissioner Boaz Cherotich, the business operators have continued to violate social distancing requirements and are also allowing more than 5 customers in their premises.
And barbershops owners in Nyandarua County on the spot over allegations of violating measures aimed at containing the spread of coronavirus. According to Nyandarua County Commissioner Boaz Cherotich, the businesses are exposing people at risk of contracting and spreading the virus by failing to observe the social distance requirement.
Lakini kulingana na ile uchunguzi ambayo tulifanya, tumekundua kwamba wengi wao wamefunja hiyo masharti. Wengi wanaruhusu wateja zaidi ya 10 kurundika katika mali ndoko zaidi.
Cherotich says it will not be business as usual if the operators continue to violate the requirement.
Kama hawataweza kufuata na kutimiza hiyo masharti, ile kitu ambayo itafanyika ni tutatoa order ya kufunga hizo businesses. Kwa hivyo tunaomba tafadhali watusaidiane na public health officers ili tuweze kudecongest hiyo mahali wanafanya biashara.
However, for Lawrence Muthe, a barbershop and salon business operator, he says they have tried to limit number of customers to their shop and also ensure that the customers sanitize their hands.
Sisi tunapea watu viti nje. Customer wenye wanangojea nje wakikeep distance. Hapa tu tunadiru na mtu mmoja katika ndani. Juu sasa hii nyumba zetu tunaona ni ndogo na space nayo ni kidogo.
The business operators called on the government to relook on better ways for them to continue with their business instead of ordering their lockdown.
Kama serikali inaweza kufunga kazi sio suluhu, kwa sababu tukifunga hizi kazi zote sisi ni wararahoi na ni wanyonge. So mimi ningeomba tu serikali to provide na spirit juu ndio tunatumia kuosha customer naye na ndio tunatumia kujiosha hata sisi naye. Alafu ile kitu kingine kama ni deto tuletee kwa wingi. Watu provide katika masalon na watu provide katika vinyozi.
Meanwhile, the public health officials in Baringo North Sub-County have been criticized for closing down hotels in the sub-county despite being clustered as essential service by the National Security Council in the wake of the deadly coronavirus.
Kuna wale wanatumia sheria kwa njia vibaya. Ulisema kama serikali mulisema watu hoteli sifunguliwe, lakini kama inafunguliwa inataka away. Lakini kuweka conditions wengine unaona kama wanachukua kwa msaa. Wanasema fungeni kabisa na wananchi wale wanaitegemea hiyo hoteli kidogo kidogo angechukua take away amefungiwa.
Representative of the business community from Baringo North Sub-County, Job Cesaro Langurati, says the officers went against the government directive of closing all the hotels, noting that majority of the hotels in the sub-county were operating under set guidelines laid by the Ministry of Health.
Watu wanatumia sheria ambayo sielewi. Watu wasitumie ugonjwa ya coronavirus itumie kwa uwezo yao.
He accused the officer in charge of public health in the sub-county of abusing powers, questioning the law which he relied before enforcing the closure. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
More than 1 million people have been diagnosed with the COVID-19 disease worldwide as the death toll surpassed 51,000. According to the latest global figures from Johns Hopkins University, about 210,000 patients recovered.
The United States, the world's hardest hit country, recorded more than 5,600 coronavirus deaths according to data collected by Johns Hopkins University. It has confirmed more than 236,000 cases of the disease. The countries with the highest number of fatalities are Italy with 13,915 deaths and Spain with 10,348. A rise of 145 fatalities in just 24 hours has pushed the number of recorded deaths from the coronavirus to over 1,000 in Germany. The country's total number of confirmed cases is approaching 80,000. In a televised speech, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday lavished praise on the Indian public for adhering to strict quarantine measures designed to slow the epidemic. Meanwhile, China's apparent success at controlling the coronavirus epidemic has given hope to the rest of the world amid a growing pandemic. However, the Communist Party chief in Wuhan, the original epicenter of the outbreak, has warned residents to only go out of their homes if necessary. Regionally, Nigeria has discharged 11 people who were being treated for the coronavirus in hospital. The country's Center for Disease Control confirmed 10 new cases of the virus, bringing the total number to 284. South Africa's health minister has said the country needs to fast-track coronavirus testing to prevent its spread in the country. The country has confirmed 1,462 cases of the virus to date and is on a 21-day lockdown. Malawi has reported its first 3 confirmed cases of coronavirus. The South African nation was among the few African countries yet to report coronavirus cases. Others include Lesotho, Comoros, South Sudan, and Sao Tome. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News.
The spread of the coronavirus, coupled with the government's directives on preventive measures, is forcing Kenyans to adopt technology in the acquisition of goods and services. Most Kenyans now prefer buying items online as businesses embrace technology as a means to survive the economic turbulence brought about by the COVID-19. Benson Kamau, a graduate from the Jomo Kenyatta University of Science and Technology, says a mobile application invented 10 years ago is now helping Kenyans wade through the challenges posed by the spread of the coronavirus. Mteja app is an online platform where small-scale traders connect to buyers to minimize movement and maintain social distance.
Kuna mtu ataitisha chakula, kuna mwingine atakuwa ako adhiriva, ataitisha viazi zikiwa kinagop akitumia mteja app. Na hiyo ni kitu imefanyika na hiyo miaka 10 kuna watu wameniambia wamekuwa akitumia bila mimi kujua.
Hiyo mteja app imenisaidia juu vile niliingia mteja app nimekuwa nikiuza for a week. Nimeuza na nimepata hata pesa mingi kuliko zenye nimekuwa nikiuza in a month.
Large retailers like supermarkets are also taking advantage of the digital space to reach out to consumers. As the effects of the COVID-19 continue to bite, more Kenyans are choosing to order food and other commodities online, earning inventors like Benson Kamau some much-needed financial relief. One Lunchtime News is taking a break. Stay with us.
Since late last year, the coronavirus COVID-19 has emerged as a serious healthcare threat. This is an infection that has gone global and no one has been spared. The government, through the Ministry of Health, has put in measures to keep Kenyans safe against COVID-19, which is currently rampant around the world, with new confirmed infections and death cases daily. Such sanitization and screening of visitors at this border post and across every entry point in the country is very vital in preventing the spread of the disease in the country.
I'm very happy about the screenings that are going on in Tanzania and Kenya. I think it's very proactive that you're thinking about stopping it at the border so that it does not spread.
It is scary that a single cough here can lead to an outbreak of epic proportions. In order to prevent that, the government has instituted measures to keep Kenyans safe.
The facility has all the equipments you need from handling a basic patient up to ICU setting.
However, you also have a role to play in preventing spread of infections.
Members of the public are encouraged to remain vigilant as the risk is still high. Let's maintain basic hand and respiratory hygiene.
It's just our general hygiene, okay? And that now means at workplaces, we should ensure that our work surfaces are clean.
Always ensure that nimefanya proper sanitation ya mikono. Every time na board matatu, lazima ni sanitize mikono.
We have faced many severe challenges as a nation, and we have always found a way to rise above them. COVID-19 is no different, and we will overcome the pandemic. Stop coronavirus. Follow all directives from the Ministry of Health. Wash your hands properly.
Next on Siku moja Mtume Muhammad, rehma na amani zimshukie, alipokuwa na masahaba wake, aliwahi kuchora mstari mmoja ulionyoka twa. Kisha akachora mistari mingine, na wakawa ni wenye kumuuliza mistari hii ina maana gani, na akawaarifu kuwa mstari ule mmoja aliyouchora ambao ulikuwa umenyoka ulikuwa ni mstari wenye kuashiria njia ama siratal mustaqim, njia iliyonyoka, na akawaarifu kuwa njia hizi zingine ni zile ambazo ni upotevu ambao shaitan na pia na wanadamu wengine wamekusudia katika kuopoteza wenzao na mu'min.
Next on.
After the cesarean section, Patrick was taken for incubation as well as ICU because he couldn't breathe on his own. So he was put on oxygen, and that is now where the whole journey started.
Cerebral palsy is easy to understand as it is an injury to the brain that is developing. An injury to the brain that is developing. Medics can define it in different terms. Some say it is a developing brain of 0 to 2 years. That's when it can be termed as cerebral palsy.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Tuona kwa shamba yetu bila kutoa lolote. Ariri usilie. Hii ni mitihani tu.
Mimi naomba ruhusa nende nikapumzike, maana nasikia vibaya.
Mama Dama, si nishakwambia umsamehe.
Yusuf, wewe umepataje hii?
Dad, mimi si CID.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
A very good afternoon to you. If you are just joining us, this is Channel 1 Lunchtime News. And right now we are crossing over to Kisumu County, where Achola Simon is standing by. Of course, the effects of the coronavirus are being felt across the globe, and the Kenyans are not exempted from this. Businesses are slowing down as Kenyans come to terms with the new normal. Achola Simon, what is the situation right now in Kisumu County?
Well, thank you very much, Kabasa. The uncertainty cloud still hangs heavy in this region and, of course, across the country. And, of course, most Kenyans really don't know how to go about this current situation. And as you rightly put it, of course, businesses have been affected and normal life has also been affected. What we've been hearing from the CS or the health CS Mutahi Kagwe has been to the effect that Kenyans must come out strongly and actually start acting in a manner that will ensure that we curtail the spread of this virus across the country. the president also coming out strongly and telling Kenyans that indeed this is not a life as is, it's not a normal way of living, or life is not as normal as Kenyans would want it to be. But one thing that is actually still annoying many people, if I may call it that way, is the fact that despite repeated calls by the powers that be in the country, that Kenyans actually start treating this situation as with the seriousness that actually it deserves, you will realize that most Kenyans still are not taking precautions as it's supposed to be. If my colleague will just probably just show you the crowd that is actually on the other side, mostly border borders, and of course the vehicles are actually just doing round the border, the roundabout, you will realize that most of them actually are not putting on the face mask, and that is the story here in Kisumu County. Of course, yesterday we did do a story of an organization that has actually come up with an innovative way of coming up with a face mask, and what they're doing is that they're actually using locally available materials and locally or cheaply available personnel to actually come up with a face mask, so that then they can actually remedy the situation. But as I speak to you right now in Kisumu town, most of the people, or most of the residents, are actually walking around without the face mask. The other thing that is actually annoying is the fact that if my colleague can actually just show the other side on the nearby supermarket, you'll see that indeed they are restricting the number of people who are actually going in and actually coming out. But what you'll also realize for a fact is the fact that most people who are actually in that supermarket or are actually operating that supermarket are actually not wearing protective gear, what we call personal protective equipment. So that is the situation. You'll see that most organizations have actually put outside the sanitizer and of course water to ensure that people actually wash their hands. But when you go in, business is quite normal, and people or Kenyans continue to treat this thing as if it is they're not treating it with the seriousness that actually it deserves, and that is what is actually annoying the most, Edward.
We have seen some county governments coming to ensure that they make the public aware of the level of preparedness in their counties. What is the county government of Kisumu doing to assure the locals that if should we find ourselves in this situation, then A, B, C, and D will be done to ensure that our people are safe?
Well, Kabasa, the first thing that actually happened when the cases actually started, were actually diagnosed in the country, the first thing that actually happened was that we saw a van going around Kisumu CBD, and of course it is environs, telling people, getting awareness around this, around the disease. And we expected, of course, that they will step up efforts to ensure that indeed these isolation centers and of course quarantine centers if need be. We remember that the governor of Kisumu County, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, did issue directives to the effect that open air markets will be closed. And as I speak to you right now, most of the open air markets have actually been closed. And he also said that they will not allow, if someone was to die today, of course, they will expect that close family members will be taking charge of the funeral arrangements, and that then immediately they will be able to inter the body as fast as possible. The other thing he said, of course, was the restriction of gatherings in and around Kisumu County. But of course, that is that. But what we know for a fact is that they have come up with about isolation centers across the county from each and every sub-county hospital. We also know for a fact that they have another isolation center at the airport. We also know that they have set up a quarantine center at the Kenya Medical Training College that has the capacity of accommodating about 135 people. And what they're saying is that they are well prepared in terms of ensuring that indeed they can actually rise to occasion if indeed any of the cases, or if there is a case that will actually be reported in Kisumu County. I will just bring to your attention the fact that there are simple things that are actually yet to be done. Yes, we've seen the county government actually coming out strongly and issuing out small tanks and washing points for people, and also instructing that businessmen must actually put washing centers outside their businesses. But what we have to see actually, which is very important, is the fact that they are here to come out strongly and start either ensure that locals actually use face masks or alternatively provide the face mask. Yesterday, in the stories that we did yesterday, if people are actually watching our news, what we actually brought out for fact is that there's only one organization that is actually trying to come up with face masks in Kisumu County. Now, we remember Kikomi is one of the textile industries in this region that actually went under. And in other counties, what has been happening is that textile industries have actually been coming up with structures as to how they are going to actually ensure that indeed they come up with face masks and of course those protective gear to ensure that indeed their residents are actually protected. That we are able to see here in Kisumu County. But of course we've been told that they put in place mechanisms to ensure that if any case is actually reported, then there's an isolation center both at the sub-county level. There's also a quarantine center that has actually been set up at the Kenya Medical Training College, of course, with the sole purpose being of ensuring that indeed, if indeed you're going to find any case in this region, then we don't allow it actually to spread, Kabasa.
And finally, Achola Simon, we know that counties bordering Kisumu, Homa Bay, Siaya, as well as Migori County, so many people there are fishermen, or we have those who are engaging in fish business. What sort of impact has this had? Because according to the latest measures which have been taken by the government, people are being discouraged to travel to and from Nairobi, and we know that one of the biggest markets for fish is Nairobi. What sort of impact has this had on the fishing folk there?
Massive impact, if you would ask Kabasa. You know for a fact, as you rightly put it, that this region heavily relies on fishing. The fisher sector is, of course, one of the areas they actually are living from. And with the directives that have actually been imposed by the government, of course, the county government, it means that indeed very few business people can actually transport their fish stocks from here to other parts of the country. But more worrying is the fact that most of the fish that is actually consumed in Kisumu comes from neighboring counties and also in Busia and in Uganda. So you can imagine, as we speak right now, Uganda is actually under lockdown. So it means then that very little, if any, fish is actually coming to Kisumu, and that of course spells up the spiking of prices in terms of what is actually available. The other thing is, as I had said earlier, is the fact that the open air markets have actually been closed. Right in front of me is actually where what used to be Oile Market, and of course further is actually the Jubilee Market, where of course we have these activities, and of course along the Kisumu main bus stop, of course, where fish is actually sold along the street. Of course, that has had major impact on it. 2 days ago, we had running battles with between police and the traders, who had actually moved from where they are supposed to be selling from, where, of course, along the road and along this route, and moved towards Arena Estate, which is on the southern bypass that actually joins Nairobi Road. And of course, police are actually hot on their heels, trying to ensure that indeed, even as they operate the other side, they're actually putting on protective gear, which of course is hard to come by this side. So indeed, just to answer your question, that has greatly hit the new directives have actually greatly hit the fish market in this region. Most of the people, of course, are saying that there's need to actually allow them to go into the lake. But of course, we understand everything that comes around allowing some people to actually go into the lake, given what is happening in the country.
Thank you very much, Achola Simon, reporting live from Kisumu County. Let us take a look at other matters, but related to COVID-19, of course. The government quest to achieve 10% forest cover has received a major boost with the commissioning of Green Zones Development Support Project Phase 2. Speaking after launching the project, the Chief Conservator of Forests, Julius Kamau, said the project is being implemented in 15 counties, home to 3 critical forest ecosystem of Mau, Aberdare and Mount Kenya over a 6-year period from 2019 to 2025.
Basically, starting from this financial year, it is to support the conservation of forests and also support the livelihood of the forest adjacent communities. in order to have what we may call sustainable forest management. This is an acknowledgement that in our forest resources, wherever we are, most of the very vulnerable communities and members of this country actually are the one who resides next to our forests. And therefore, if we don't go ahead and support them in their livelihood, then there will be a bit of high dependency on our forest resources. And of course, through that, we have a lot of illegality happening in our forests. And therefore, it's a new approach to be able to ensure there is sustainable forest management where the government and Kenya Forest Service work in partnership with the forest adjacent communities.
The Kisumu County Assembly has approved the appointment of Joyce Wanjiku Ngugi as County Deputy Governor. Ngugi was nominated by Governor James Nyoro in February after he took over the mantle of the county following the impeachment of Ferdinand Waititu. Joyce Wanjiku Ngugi, who has been serving as the chairperson for the National Council for Children's Services, holds a bachelor's and master's degree in education. The Kisumu County Assembly will this afternoon consider the nomination of 10 county executive committee members and the County Public Service Board.
When we were vetting the candidate, she was quite aware and quite clear on the mandate of the Deputy Governor. And it is indeed herself who said that the role of the Deputy Governor is to deputize the Governor and also perform roles which are given to her or him by the Governor.
Will as many as of the opinion say aye? Aye. Aye. And would as many as would be of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, from closure of pubs, restaurants, events cancellation. Social distancing is imposed. This has prompted the Kenya Association of Music Producers to release a 5.6 million shilling emergency kitty to mitigate the impact on its 1,102 members.
Music better enjoyed with others. From this, a massive industry supporting millions of people. Entertainment sports such as clubs, restaurants, music concerts, and even religious settings such as churches offer an avenue for artists and in turn make a living. Now they have all been closed. As countries enforce movement restrictions to contain the spread of coronavirus, the entertainment industry is already in lockdown. Jobs lost, income cut short.
So what we are getting is people who have no other means of livelihood. People who want to depend on handouts because there's nothing else they can do.
The Kenya Association of Music Producers is offering 5.6 million shillings to its members.
Hii ni pesa ile tulikuwa tumekusanya miaka imepita. Ile pesa tumeweka kama kalisafu hivi just in case of an emergency. But hakuna emergency kubwa imepita hii. Ndio sababu tumesema wacha tufagie ile kitu yote tuko nayo. Tupatie wa members angarau mtu anunue uga akule siku 2 siku 3.
The fund, distributed by the Collective Management Organization, is based on a scientific system that takes into consideration pay for play. The top earners include Tamasha Corporation Limited, Jojo Productions, Kasanga Music Center, and Copybird Limited. The Collective Management Organization officials are calling on members to extend a helping hand to those in need.
Please, if you have a neighbor who is suffering, it's the high time that we showed love for our people by giving to those who are vulnerable.
Now the only hope for these entertainers is that they can continue their trade online. Betty Kiptum, Channel 1 Business.
Business conditions declined to the lowest level since October 2017 as the outbreak of coronavirus led to a large drop in consumer demand and client orders. The latest Stanbic Purchasing Managers Index shows that in March, operating conditions for businesses posted a reading of 37.5, representing a sharp decline from a reading of 49 recorded in February. Coronavirus, which was first reported in China late last year, had an impact on business activity in Kenya in February as the Asian country imposed lockdowns, forcing some companies to temporarily halt production. The lockdowns in the Asian country hurt business activity in Kenya, with the Stanbic Purchasing Managers Index posting a reading of 49.0 in February. However, confirmation of the first coronavirus in Kenya in March, coupled with lockdowns in key markets, as well as local businesses temporarily halting or reducing operations on the government's advice that they allow employees to work from home, has seen business activity sharply decline. The latest Stanbic Purchasing Managers Index shows that in March, operating conditions for businesses had a reading of 37.5, which is the second worst recorded level in the survey's history, when businesses were affected by uncertainty as the country prepared for the presidential runoff. The Stanbic report indicates that last month, businesses reduced activity and employment, while demand for inputs fell at the quickest pace since late 2017. The report indicates that shortage of raw materials contributed to a faster rise in overall input costs. Stanbic says many surveyed businesses noted that worries surrounding the virus meant that customers cancelled or reduced new orders, leading to a steep fall in total sales that was the second sharpest on record. New orders from foreign clients declined at a record pace in March. Kenyan businesses particularly noted a drop in new orders from Europe. Firms said raw materials were in short supply in March, with those importing from China the most affected. Oil prices shed some of the massive gains on Friday, taking stocks in Asia lower as doubts grew over an oil price deal between Saudi Arabia and Russia that U.S. President Donald Trump said he had brokered. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude lost 4.7% to $24.14 a barrel, having surged a record 24.7% on Thursday. Brent futures dropped 4.6% to $28.55 a barrel. Here are details of this and other stories from across our borders.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday said he had spoken to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and expects Saudi Arabia and Russia to cut oil output by as much as 10 million to 15 million barrels as the two countries signaled willingness to make a deal. Saudi Arabia said it would call an emergency meeting of OPEC. The amount cited by Trump would represent an unprecedented cut equal to 10% to 15% of global supply in output per day terms. However, the gains were rolled back on Friday as doubts grew over an oil price deal between Saudi Arabia and Russia. The U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude lost 4.7% to $24.14 per barrel, having surged a recorded 24.7% on Thursday. Brent futures on Friday dropped 4.6% to $28.55 per barrel. Elsewhere, Google has published reports for 131 countries showing whether visits to shops, parks, and workplaces dropped in March when many governments issued stay-at-home orders to rein in the spread of the novel coronavirus. Google's analysis of location data from billions of users' phones is the largest public dataset available to help health authorities assess if people are abiding with stay-at-home orders issued across the world. In Italy, one of the countries hardest hit by the virus, visits to retail and recreation locations, including restaurants and movie theaters, plunged 94%, while visits to workplaces slid 63%. In the United States, California cut visits to retail and recreational locations by half. Data in Google's reports came from the users who enabled Google's location history feature on their devices. Finally, the People's Bank of China, the country's central bank, has introduced a series of measures to provide precise financial services for epidemic prevention and control to facilitate the resumption of work and production and promote the development of the real economy. Since the outbreak of the coronavirus, the real economy, especially the micro, small, and